Can Illinois reach the college football playoff? That's a question that has been asked by so many different people, and the answer's been a resounding yes. But I want to go a little bit more in depth than most people and maybe add a sense of realism to this. Nick P., an Indiana fan, and he's asked another question that I'll make into a video about Illinois, specifically involving Indiana's matchup with Illinois, because he's an Indiana Hoosiers fan. He asked, verbatim, can Illinois make the college football playoff in 2025? And I think that, they can, and that's the same answer on a general basis that most people have given to this question. But I want to go more in depth because a lot of people are talking about Illinois as this playoff sleeper, as 2025's Indiana, and giving a lot of affection and a lot of praise to Illinois. I imagine Brett Bielema hates it, because Illinois haven't finished ranked in a season when they started out ranked in the preseason polls since before 2000. Fun fact from Tom Fornelli. Thank you very much, Cover 3 podcast. Should give them a listen. Very entertaining group of people, a lot of different perspectives. Don't always agree with them, but I do agree with Tom's concern on that point, him being an Illinois fan, a passionate one at that. They can reach the college football playoff. I mean, they finished 10-3 last year, 6-3. They were fifth in the Big Ten. If the predicted 16-team college football playoff that many are expecting, even the 14-team model that should exist and should be implemented in 2026 were implemented last season, and you include the play-in games for the playoffs that the Big Ten wants to roll out, Illinois, they would have played Ohio State for a right to go to the playoffs last year. Ohio State, I think, would have won quite handily in the same way they beat Tennessee, but still, they were in the mix for getting one of the better non-playoff bowls, and if they somehow, some way, either beat Minnesota or maybe pulled off an upset against Oregon or Penn State, they could have been in the playoffs last year. They won a lot of close games, they lost a close game, and then they beat South Carolina, who many viewed as deserving of a playoff spot in the postseason. Yes, South Carolina had opt-outs, but so did Illinois. And they bring back 75% of their 2024 production. Factoring in transfers, yes, but they return Luke Altmyer, basically their entire secondary, much of their linebacker core, their offensive line, 2 out of their 3 rotated running backs. I mean, this team will improve power ratings-wise. They will perform at a higher level in big games for sure. Their ceiling will be higher, and their floor will also be higher. When you return that much production, that's what almost always happens. However, that does not mean they will have a superior record. It doesn't. Let me explain. In 2023, Iowa finished the regular season with a 10-2 record. They brought back nearly 80% of their production entering 2024, and they went 8-4. They were power rated top 25, almost top 20 in 2024. They were not even power rated top 30. I don't even think top 40 in 2023. Some of that was they played a little bit of a tougher schedule. However, another part of that was they won a bunch of close games in 2023. And then they lost all of their close games, or almost all of them, in 2024. Close games often involve a lot of different things that are outside of the team's control, or I think, to put it more accurately and to be more respectful of the game and effort, and I don't like bringing up luck. I typically don't. So I'll recant that statement I made a few seconds ago and adjust it and say that close games often involve a lot of quick decision-making and a lot of little decisions that end up making a big outcome in an addition of 1 to the W column or an addition of 1 to the L column. A lot of decisions that if you could make them again, you'd do differently. Or even if you had to make that decision again with the same amount of reaction time allowed, you'd make a different decision because, you're in the moment. There's adrenaline. There's different adjustments and tactics you have to think about. All these things have an effect. And Illinois made the ball bounce their way a lot of the time last year. Sometimes the ball bounced their way just in general. Not saying this in a lucky sense, but maybe a team made a bad decision and Illinois made a good one. You can't always count on that to happen. That's why the law of close games exists. You win a bunch of close games one year, the following year, maybe the opponents you play in a close game do a better job of making decisions, and you do a worse job of making better decisions than you and your opponents did against each other the prior year. And as a result, maybe you're a better team in year one or year two compared to year one of this sample, but you lose more games because in the moments that decide close games, you make worse decisions or your opponents make better decisions. Or maybe something really lucky, truly lucky does happen and it benefited you the prior year and it doesn't benefit you this year. That could happen to Illinois. And that is why, while my answer is yes, they can, my answer is no, they won't. They can. In fact, a lot of teams, since it's a 12-team college football playoff, can contend for it. But there are people who are talking about Illinois this year like if the 4-team playoff existed, they'd be a contender. And to answer that question, my answer would be no, they couldn't. And I will say here, they can make the 12-team playoff. I would love to see them reach the 12-team playoff. It'd be an awesome story. I'm rooting for it to happen. But I don't think it will. I don't think that they will make the 12-team playoff. In fact, I don't even think they'll come close. They went 9-3 last year. They were not ranked inside the top 16. If they go 9-3 again, it'll probably be the same story. And the law of close games says, along with their win total, that 8-4 is more likely than 9-3. At 8-4, they may not even be ranked in the top 25. There was no team last season with 4 losses that was ranked in the top 25 in the final college football playoff rankings. No team, for the first time in years, no team was ranked in the final college football playoff rankings on Selection Sunday with more than 3 losses. Even LSU at the end of the year with a 9-4 record playing in America's toughest conference, the SEC. By toughest, I mean top down. Big Ten is better top teams. Just wanted to make that statement clear. They were not even ranked. Michigan, who beat top 5 in power ratings, Alabama and Ohio State back to back, 8-5, not close to being ranked. Just as an example of that. So the Illini need to go 10-2, or more preferably 11-1, to guarantee a college football playoff spot. Let's say Indiana steps back. USC doesn't have a really good year. Washington just maybe wins 6 games again or only 7, and Wisconsin is a losing record. And Duke takes a big step back. And then they win all those games. They go 11-1, but Ohio State beats them by 28 points. It would be exactly like Indiana's resume last year. Exactly like that. Just as weak in that hypothetical. And with what Illinois returns, with what they showed us last year as to who they are, and their schedule, and how just all these things work out, they can make the playoffs. But I'm going to tell you something that I don't think anyone else has said, or most of anyone else, at least in the college football analyst space, the YouTube accounts, the Twitter accounts, On3, 24/7 Sports, any of that. I'm telling you right now, they will not make the playoffs with who they were last year and what they're bringing back. They will not make the playoffs. They can, and I hope they do, but I don't think they will. I think their D-line has major areas of concern, especially at D-tackle. I think that their offensive line, it was awful in pass blocking last year, and in run blocking it was just okay. There's some limitations with that O-line. They lost Pat Bryant, who was a draft pick, and Zachary Franklin, who was an undrafted free agent. They have a lot to replace at wide receiver, and I don't think Hudson Clement, who they got from West Virginia, is as good as either of those two who departed. So Illinois is a good team. They're going to be better than they were last year power ratings-wise. I have no doubt that they will play Ohio State more competitively this season than they played Oregon last season. No doubt about that. They may even play them better than they played Penn State last year, where, yes, they were constantly within striking distance against Penn State, but you could tell in watching the TV that Penn State was the far better team. Maybe Illinois will play Ohio State more competitively than they played Penn State last year, and that was a somewhat competitive game. But in terms of wins and losses, I think they're going to have the same record or worse record. That's why Vegas has the win total set this way. They are aware of the law of close games and the historical fact as well, which doesn't have a lot of input, but some, that Illinois, when they start ranked, typically doesn't finish ranked. I'm not even saying that'll happen this year. I'm just saying that 7-5, 8-4 is more likely than 10-2 or 11-1. 9-3 with Illinois is not getting you in the playoffs. So can they make it? I guess so, but it's not a confident yes from me, and I don't think they'll make it. I think Altmyer is a great quarterback, could be an elite one, and I think their secondary is in totality, I think it's the Big Ten's best. I think Penn State is the only team that depth-wise can compete with their secondary. Ohio State, on account of their upside, could compete as well. Maybe the same with Michigan, maybe Minnesota with Coy Parrish, but Illinois is the most proven secondary right now in the Big Ten. But their problem is a little bit the trenches and also wide receivers and just their talent limitations. And I don't think their staff is elite either. They have a lot going against them when it comes to the Illini reaching the college football playoff. I think Bielema is a good coach, and I think that while Illinois will be a better team than last year, I think they'll follow the path of 2024 Iowa, where they'll get better in terms of power ratings and in terms of performance in big games and in terms of their ability to maybe dominate inferior opponents instead of playing them close. But when they face off against equal competition, I don't think they'll win as many close ones against equal competition as they did the prior season. So can they make it, Nick P., to answer your question? I mean, yeah, they can. I hope it happens, but I don't think they will. I think you're looking at 8-4, 7-5, or 9-3 again. I think 10-2 and 11-1 is much more improbable than many, even in the analyst and pundit class and even in the advanced analytics class, are saying is likely.